Metal screamed as the landing gear locked. The cockpit vibrated with a deep, angry hum. De-icing fluid and cold kerosene mixed in the air, sharp in Elena Markova's nose. Outside the windscreen, the runway was a thin strip of broken concrete at the edge of a European valley, a ribbon that ended too early and dropped into dark pine. The mountains threw gusts sideways, slapping the wings of the Atlas. Her gloved fingers tightened on the side stick until the knuckles blanched. The aircraft was overweight for a strip this short. One flare too high, and she'd float past the touchdown point. One flare too low, and she'd drive 12 tons of medical equipment straight through the nose gear. Behind her, a loadmaster held on, eyes fixed on the altimeter, knowing there was no go-around. Fuel was below diversion minimum. "Valkyrie, commit! You are short! Repeat, commit!" The voice from the ground was calm, but it left her no good option. Elena pushed the thrust levers to idle, jaw clenched, eyes on the numbers rushing toward her. Hard cut. 24 hours earlier. Ramstein Air Base, Germany, Woro 600Z. Ramstein at Zo 600Z was dark glass and humming heaters. Kaptate. Elena Markova stood in the briefing room with a steaming paper cup cooling in her hand, eyes on the large screen. Satellite imagery showed a valley in the Balkans, winter gray and torn, a thin line of concrete painted in pale blue. Someone had zoomed in so far the pixels broke apart. "This is LZ Helios," Lieutenant Colonel Anders Holm said, tapping the screen with a pen, tall, Swedish, precise. "Old auxiliary strip. Civilian maintenance, limited snow clearing. Earthquake yesterday took out the main airport. Our forward element is here." Tap again, a red triangle. "And they need surgical capability inside 6 hours." Elena's first thought was not about heroics. It was numbers. Length, slope, elevation, surface, temperature. "What's the measured usable?" she asked. Holmes' jaw flexed. "Local says 900 meters. "Local says isn't a measurement," she replied. Her tone stayed even. "Do we have an engineer strip survey?" "Not yet. We don't have time to get one." There it was. The pressure. Political, not aeronautical. Elena glanced at the Freygourd on the table. Humanitarian emergency airlift, priority high, aircraft, A400M or equivalent. Beneath it, in small print, risk to aircraft acceptable within mission parameters. She hated that line. "Captain," Holmes said, softening his voice, "the EU rep is on the ground. He called our commander directly. Says if we don't show, the local media will run NATO absent. We can't have that." She looked back at the screen. The strip ended in trees. On approach, a village squatted too close to centerline. "ROE?" she asked. Holmes slid a sheet toward her. Single approach. No circling over populated area, no low passes. In and down. Single approach. No flyby to check debris, no chance to feel the winds. That meant she would have to believe whatever the ground controller told her. Her crew would have to believe her. "If I refuse?" she said. She asked it calmly because good officers asked the hard question calmly. "Then we task another crew," Holmes said, "and they will be less familiar with tactical arrivals than you are." His eyes met hers. "And people on the ground may die." There was the other half of the weight. Months ago she had read an after-action. A child died in a field hospital because blood arrived too late. Logistics killed as surely as bullets. "Elena," Holm added, dropping rank, "you're the one I can sell to Brussels. Female pilot, complex landing, humanitarian. It shows what we are." So it was also about who she was. She took a breath, letting the heater's dry air scrape her throat. "I will take it," she said. If I choose the crew and the load mix, and I want fuel authority. Holm nodded, fast, eager. Done. I also want the latest MET and a direct line to the forward controller. If the strip is under 900 usable, I plan for 750. That's conservative. That's safe. He didn't argue. He just said, "Wheels up in 90." As he left, the room felt larger. Elena stood alone with the satellite image. Single approach. No overflight. Heavy cargo. Political eyes. She set the cup down, untouched. Accepting had been the only choice that let her sleep later, and yet she felt the old vice closing. If anything went wrong, it would be her name on the report. She picked up the phone to call operations. "This is Captain Markova. I'm taking Helios. I need Keller for Nav and Petrovich on the ramp. And tell maintenance I want Atlas Bravo 2 warmed and ready." Outside on the flight line, the big aircraft waited in the cold, indifferent to politics. The operations bay was awake now, fluorescent panels buzzing, voices moving in clipped German and English. Elena walked in with the fragord tucked under her arm. Through the wide window she could see Atlas Bravo 2 in the half-light, ground crew working heaters into the intakes. Lieutenant Martin Keller was already at a workstation, headphones around his neck, eyes on performance tables. He was lean, dark-haired, always a half-step more formal than necessary. He stood as she approached. "Ma'am." "We've got Helios," she said. "Short strip, Balkan Valley, humanitarian. You're my nav." He didn't smile. "Do we have updated runway condition?" "Not yet." "Then we don't have landing data." "We have enough to plan," she said. "We shoot for 750 usable. Plan for 850, no go-around." His brow pulled in. "No go-around? That's, Captain, for a strip we haven't surveyed." Those are the ROE. Political eyes. 1. Approach. We clear the village. We land. Keller's mind moved to margins. She could see it. He flicked through the manual. At that length, cold day valley, we need to be light. We should reduce cargo and take more fuel in case of diversion. Negative on reducing cargo, Elena said. We're delivering surgical teams and blood. If we take less, we fail the intent. Then we take less fuel. I asked for fuel authority, she reminded him. We'll go near minimums and a close alternate. No scenic tour. Keller hesitated. That gives us almost no holding. We're not holding. She let her tone harden just enough. We go straight in. Before he could respond, boots sounded behind them. Sergeant Lucia Petrovich came in shrugging off a parka, her blonde hair tied back, cheeks still flushed from the cold. She spotted Elena and grinned, then caught sight of the map on the screen. Balkans? She said, accent soft but unmistakably Slavic. Where? Near the Dravska Valley, Elena said. Earthquake. You're on the ramp. Petrovich nodded once, serious now. Then we need both generator pallets and the surgical kit. Locals will not have reliable power. Keller interjected. If we take both heavy pallets, we'll exceed ideal landing weight for 850. Petrovich looked from him to Elena. But if we don't take them, people there die when power goes. There it was, the invisible rope tugging Elena from both sides. She pulled up the load plan on the screen. We prioritize medical pallets 1 and 2. We drop the secondary water pallet. Keller said, Water is lighter than generators. Water they can source locally, Petrovich said. Power they can't. Captain, the roads may be broken. We are it. Elena took a breath. The safe pilot in her wanted extra fuel, less weight, a neat profile. The officer responsible for outcomes saw a crushed hospital and a news crew filming a NATO aircraft that brought blankets instead of blood. We're going with both medical pallets, she said. We trim fuel to mission plus alternate, no loiter. Martin, run me landing distance for an A400M at that weight. Flaps full, max reverse, anti-skid. Keller's jaw tightened, but he obeyed, fingers moving. Assuming surface is dry, we are within limits. Barely. He looked up. If the surface is contaminated, then we eat more runway, Elena said, which is why we planned for 750, not 900. We land in the first third or we don't land. Petrovich nodded, approval in her eyes. I'll secure the load for a hard stop. Do it. Engines may stay running during offload. That's not standard for humanitarian, Keller said. It will be today. We're in and out. A meteorologist stepped into the bay, holding a printout. Captain Markova? She took it. Cloud cover, over southern Germany and pushing into the Balkans. A cold front edging faster than forecast. Ceiling dropping after 0900Z, the Met-Tech said. You'll want to be on the ground before that. So their time window shrank again. Elena handed the paper to Keller. There's your answer on fuel. We don't have time to loiter for weather. We go before it closes. Keller lowered his voice. Captain, I trust you're flying, but this is pushing every parameter. I know, she said, meeting his eyes. I will not throw this aircraft away, but I will not fly all the way there and tell them we brought half of what they need. That was the choice, naked on the table. Understood, he said at last. Though it didn't sound like agreement. It sounded like a man filing an objection in his head. Petrovich, Elena said, turning. Make sure tie-downs are set for heavy braking. Tell ground to warm the APUs. We're wheels up in 60. Yes, ma'am. Petrovich's voice carried a note of pride. This mattered to her in a way that wasn't abstract. As they broke to their tasks, Elena looked once more at the aircraft beyond the window. Gray, patient, powerful. She had just traded away comfort margins for human lives she would never see. They moved to the secure comms room, a smaller space with thick walls and a single screen waiting for a video feed. Outside, the German sky was still iron black. Elena stood with her arms folded, headset on, Keller beside her with a notebook, Petrovich leaning in the doorway. Holm had dialed in from his office, his face in a corner window of the display. Connecting to forward air controller, call sign Orbis, the comms tech said. The screen flickered to a bearded man in a reflective vest, wind pushing at him. Behind his shoulder, Elena could make out a line of damaged buildings, and farther off, a strip of concrete dusted with frost. The image wavered. This was a phone uplink, not a proper feed. This is Orbis, Helios site, the man said in accented English. You are the aircraft, yes? This is Captain Markova, NATO airlift, she said. We need precise runway data. Current length usable, condition, obstacles on approach. Yes, yes, Orbis said quickly. Runway is 900 meters. We cleared it. Elena glanced at Keller. He wrote 900 claim in his notebook. 900 measured from threshold to threshold? Elena asked. Or 900 including displaced? The man hesitated. From where the concrete begins. Which told her everything. Listen, she said, keeping her voice level. I need usable landing distance. No parked vehicles, no debris, no people. Touchdown zone must be clear. What is the length then? He looked off screen, yelling something in his own language. Wind whistled over the mic. He came back. 850, maybe 870. Which? Keller murmured. Call it 850, Elena said. Holmes' small window lit up as he leaned forward. 850 is fine, Captain. Not if it's sloped, Elena said. What's the gradient? she asked Orbis. The man blinked. It is a little up. How much? 2%? 3%? It is a village strip, Captain. It was not a problem for the small planes. That was the problem. Today was not small planes. Surface? She pressed. Dry, wet, ice? We cleared snow. Some ice at the far end. But you do not need the far end. You land short. Keller muttered. He says. Elena stared at the image of the runway over his shoulder. The far end did look whiter. We cannot use the icy end, she said, so we treat it as 750 usable. Holm cut in. Markova, the man just told you 850. And I see ice at the end, she replied. We land heavy. We plan for 750. Orbis looked offended, as if she'd insulted the strip. Captain, we need you to come. The hospital has no power. We have foreign observers. There it was again. Not just need, but witnesses. You will keep the first 300 meters clear, Elena said. No vehicles, no people, no cameras in the safety area. Cameras? He said, surprised. We will be arriving at maximum braking. Anyone too close could be injured. She let the implication hang. She was protecting his people. He nodded reluctantly. We will clear. Good. We are inbound in approximately... She looked to Keller. He ran quick mental math with current winds. 4 hours 30, he said. 4:30, Elena said. Holmes spoke from his tile. Captain, Political wants you on the ground within 6 hours of Quake update. That clock started an hour ago, so she'd already lost time. Understood, she said. Then we don't have time for a second pass. Orbis, if the runway is obstructed, we will go around an RTB. There will not be a holding pattern. But there will not, she repeated. Keep it clear. He nodded, chastened. When the call ended, Holm exhaled. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Elena. I'm making it survivable, she said. What he calls 850 is a village strip in winter, with ice on the rollout. We treat it as 750. We touch down in the first third. We brake hard, or we don't land. Holm didn't like it, but he couldn't argue without sounding reckless. Fine, but Brussels wants to see that aircraft on the ground. Then Brussels can help by telling their people not to crowd the runway. He gave her a thin smile and disconnected. Petrovich pushed off the doorway. He does not understand winter concrete. No, Elena said, but he understands headlines. Keller flipped his notebook closed. I'll run the performance again with 750 and our current load. We're still inside, but our margin is narrow. Narrow is better than imaginary, Elena said. Brief the crew that we are treating Helios as a short-field tactical landing. This is not a show pass. This is a committed arrival. She felt the weight again. She had just rejected the easier story in favor of the harsher reality, which meant if anything went wrong, the report would say pilot planned for reduced runway, not local data was wrong. The hangar doors yawned open to cold air and a line of sodium lights. Atlas Bravo 2 sat on the apron, ramped down, cargo already arriving on flatbeds. Diesel fumes mixed with the winter smell of metal and frost. Elena walked toward the aircraft with her helmet bag over her shoulder, Keller beside her, Petrovich already on the ramp shouting tie-down instructions in 2 languages. Pallet 1, forward of Station 4, Petrovich called. Double chain, expect heavy braking on landing. The load crew shot her a look. Heavy braking was not what anyone preferred, but they obeyed. Elena climbed the ladder into the cockpit. The space welcomed her with familiar shapes. Glass displays, dark but ready. Overhead panel like a night sky of switches. She slid into the left seat, set her bag down, and let her hands move on habit, battery on, external power confirm, IRS align. Outside, ground power hummed. Keller took the right seat, pulling up flight plan data. Filed direct through Austria, tactical segment in the valley, he said. ATC has us humanitarian priority. Good, she said. Less time in the air, less time for weather to close. She opened the landing performance page, entered the numbers she hated. Weight, 750 usable, cold surface, full flaps, anti-skid. The computer spat back a figure that was within limits, but not generous. She stared at it longer than she needed to. The cockpit blurred, and for a heartbeat, she wasn't at Ramstein. She was back 2 winters ago. Northern training strip, low ceiling. The controller then had said the runway was possible, but snowplows hadn't cleared the whole length. She'd flown the approach, seen patchy ice and chosen to go around. Textbook. Safe. When they came back 40 minutes later, after the plows, they learned a medic on the ground had died of internal bleeding. The medevac helicopter couldn't land in the weather, and her transport hadn't been there yet. She had done the right thing. The investigation had said so, but it had still ended with a death. Safety had not saved him. Keller's voice brought her back. "Captain?" "I'm here," she said. She cleared the old image away, though it stayed at the edges of her vision like cold glass. He glanced at her screen. "Performance still within?" "Yes, but we are not wasting runway today. We touched down on speed, on point." He nodded, serious. She keyed the intercom. "Petrovich, cockpit." A crackle, then Petrovich's voice. "Go ahead. Secure the load for a hard stop. Expect engines on offload. Make sure nothing can shift forward." "Already done," Petrovich said. "I added 2 extra chains. If we stop too hard, the aircraft will break before the cargo moves." It was meant as reassurance, and it worked. Lucia understood risk the same way Elena did. Name it, tie it down. Elena switched frequencies to ground ops. "Atlas Bravo 2, Captains Markova. Request latest runway info Helios on data link." A pause, then text scrolled in. Local report unchanged. "Runway 850M, partially contaminated, no obstacles reported. Political priority high arrival. 6H requested." She felt the old anger again, the kind that came when non-flyers added urgency without adding meters of concrete. "Captain," Keller said quietly, "we can still step this down. We can ask for a smaller load and take more fuel." She looked at him. He wasn't defiant, just cautious. The kind of cautious she'd once been applauded for. "If the runway is open," she said, "we land." "That's a big if." "It is the only if I will take today." She said it softly, but the words set. "I will not repeat that winter." He didn't know what winter she meant, but he heard the finality. He nodded once and went back to his checklists. She pulled up the tactical landing checklist. Full flaps, anti-skid armed, manual braking, reverse at touchdown. We brief now, not on approach. They went through it line by line. Approach angle, target speed, go around point, which today was theoretical. ROE, single approach, no circle over the village, no low passes. If obstructed, immediate climb out and RTB to nearest suitable. When they were done, tower called. "Atlas Bravo 2, Ramstein ground, start approved. Expect runway 26, departure to the southeast." "Bravo 2 copies," Elena said. She reached overhead, fingers steady now, and brought the aircraft to life. Engines spooled with the deep, rising whine she'd known since flight school. Outside, Petrovich raised a thumb. Cargo door up, ramp closing. Elena watched the hydraulic indicators rise. This was it. Planning was over. Commitment was next. "Martin," she said, eyes forward. "Once we're in that valley, there will be a moment where the profile doesn't look perfect. Turbulence, crosswind, maybe a crowd too close. I will continue unless the runway is blocked. I need you to back me, not fight me in that second." He held her gaze. Then slowly he said, "I'll back you." She nodded, accepting the small but important loyalty. She called Tower again. "Ramstein Tower, Atlas Bravo 2, ready for taxi." "Atlas Bravo 2, taxi Alpha 1 to 26. Departure approved." The aircraft rolled, heavy and sure, toward the dark runway. She had made her private decision. Today she would not let the people on the ground wait for the perfect landing. At cruise, the Atlas was a different animal. Steady, purposeful, an airborne warehouse humming over snow-patched Europe. The sunrise turned the cloud tops peach, and for a moment, it almost looked like a normal transport run. Elena kept her headset on, eyes moving from primary flight display to the weather radar, and then to the small moving map that showed their line angling toward the Balkans. "Current fuel gives us primary, plus nearest suitable," Keller reported, tapping the FMS. "But there isn't a lot of margin if we have to hold." "We're not holding," Elena said. "We keep daylight." The controller's voice crackled in from Vienna sector. "Humanitarian flight, NATO Atlas Bravo 2. You are cleared direct point Lima Echo. Maintain flight level 220. Direct Lima Echo, FL 220, Bravo 2. Elena read back. She glanced at Keller. "See? Priority is working." He didn't look convinced. Priority doesn't change the clouds over a valley. He was right, but she didn't say so. She flicked on the weather overlay for their destination. The front pushing down from the northeast was now a solid smear of blue-green, the kind that meant lowering ceilings, maybe light snow. The timestamp showed it running about an hour ahead of the earlier forecast. "Met just updated," Keller said, reading a data link message. "Field reports, ceiling lowering, visibility variable." "How variable?" He scrolled. 2,000 to 1,500 meters. Calm to gusty crosswind. They don't have proper instruments, so it's eyeballed. "So we need to be there before it drops below what an eyeball can call," she said. He looked at her over the console. "We could ask for a short delay en route. Let it pass. And arrive closer to dusk on a cold strip in a valley?" She shook her head. "No, light is our friend today." He hesitated. "Light is our friend, but so is a stable approach. Then we make it stable." Her tone wasn't sharp, just decided. "We're not throwing away daylight on a maybe." Below them, the terrain began to rise, the map showing ragged lines of mountains. She remembered the satellite photo, a strip ending in trees, a village sitting too close. Visual cues would matter. The paint, the threshold bars, the texture of the surface. Lose light and everything turned gray on gray. ATC came back. "Atlas Bravo 2, confirm you are equipped and capable for tactical arrival into Helios?" Elena keyed the mic. "Affirmative, Bravo 2 is configured for tactical short field. Humanitarian priority." "Roger, maintain present speed. Be advised, weather in your destination area deteriorating sooner than expected." "We copy," she said. She could almost hear the subtext. "Get in while you can." Keller pulled up alternate fields. "Closest real alternate is Zagreb, then Graz. Both better than what we're going to." "Good," she said. "Gives us somewhere to put the aircraft if Helios is blocked. But if we divert, we don't deliver." "I know." She kept her eyes on the horizon. "That's why we're not wasting time." Petrovich came forward from the cargo bay, bracing herself against the doorway. "Load is secure. If you stop hard, nothing moves. Good, Elena said, glancing back. How's the cabin? Cold but fine. Petrovich watched her a second. Weather? Getting worse faster, Elena said. We'll beat it. Petrovich accepted that with a nod and disappeared aft. A chime sounded. Incoming message from Orbis. Keller opened it. He frowned. They say there are people near the runway. People? Elena said. Define people. Civilians observing arrival, Keller read. They've put up some tape, but it's a village. They want to see the big plane. Elena exhaled slowly. Of course. A giant military transport coming into a tiny strip. People would come. Kids, phones, local officials wanting to be in the shot. Send back. Runway and safety area must be clear, she said. No personnel, no vehicles, no cameras inside the zone. If not clear, we go around and leave. Keller typed. They're not going to like that. They don't have to like it. They have to move. A few seconds later, the reply came in. Will attempt. Media present. Request low pass. Elena actually let out a humorless breath. We are not doing a low pass. ROE forbids it. Then they will have to clear fast, Keller said. Which is another reason we don't arrive at dusk, Elena said. Daylight makes people easier to see when they ignore instructions. She called ATC again. Vienna Bravo 2 requests best possible direct routing to destination due weather and ground factors. NATO Bravo 2 approved. You are cleared direct Helios initial. Contact Balkan Control in 10. So that was her decision, locked in the radio tapes. She had chosen speed and light over extra fuel and patience. Keller sat back, not arguing further, but the line between his brows stayed. To him, she was flying slightly hotter than the cautious captain he knew from other missions. To her, this was what the job demanded today. Outside, the clouds ahead were no longer peach. They were thickening, coming down to meet the terrain. Balkan Control handed them off with a warning. Atlas Bravo 2, be advised mountain wave activity in the valley. Surface winds variable. Report field in sight. Bravo 2 copies, Elena said. She eased the throttles back, feeling the big aircraft start down. Outside, the world changed from high cloud to rising terrain, ridges clawing up toward them, forest dark with winter. The valley that held Helios was narrow, broader at the far end, like a funnel that hadn't quite opened. Keller called out, "Terrain ahead, left and right, 2 miles." The EGPWS showed amber along the sides. "Recommend we stay on the tactical arrival profile." "We're doing tactical," she said. 3.8 down. Steeper than civilian comfort, but it kept them under the cloud and above the trees. She reached up, selected approach phase, then keyed the intercom. "Crew, cockpit. We are commencing tactical descent into Helios. Expect turbulence and short field landing. Secure." From aft, Petrovich's voice. "Cargo secured. Cabin ready." The first gust hit them entering the valley, a sideways shove that made the Atlas flex. The wings rolled a few degrees before the autopilot compensated. Elena disconnected it. In tight, messy air, she trusted her hands more than the computer. Keller glanced at her. "You've got it?" "I've got it." Her left hand on the side stick was firm, right hand on the throttles, modulating. "Call me altitude and speed." "Passing 9,000, speed 200, he said. She dropped the gear early. The vibration changed, a deeper drag. Flaps to the first landing step. The aircraft settled into the steeper path. "Orbis, this is NATO Bravo 2 on final approach route," Elena called on the local frequency. "Confirm runway and safety area clear." Static, then Orbis came in, breathless. Bravo 2, runway is clear. Some civilians outside the line, but clear. Define outside the line, she said, eyes never leaving the valley. She could see the village now. Bunched houses with dark roofs, smoke curling straight up. So the wind at ground was light at least. Outside the tape, Orbis said. They just watch. People behind the tape are still a hazard at our landing distance, she said. Keep them back. A pocket of descending air dropped them a few feet. She corrected with power. The valley tightened. To keep the village clear, she had to offset slightly, then roll back toward the strip. Not the fairest approach for a heavy transport, but it matched ROE. Keller watched the numbers. Glide path a little high for standard. We're not flying standard, she said. We're flying what keeps us visual. He let that pass. He could see what she saw. The cloud ahead was lower over the ridgeline, smearing the upper part of where a gentle 3-degree glide would be. If she tried to float down nice and smooth, she'd lose sight of the runway for a moment. That was unacceptable. So she stayed steeper, eyes on the gray strip at the valley floor. Passing 5,000, Keller said. Speed 180. Flaps full, she said. The aircraft grumbled as the big flaps came down. More drag, more lift, more control at lower speed. Flaps full, Keller confirmed. Landing checklist? They ran it fast. Gear down, flaps full, spoilers armed, anti-skid on, reversers armed. Another gust shoved the nose. She held it, correcting with rudder and a touch of aileron. The wings stayed level. Her jaw was clenched, but her breathing was even. Bravo 2, we see you, Orbis called, excited. Big Bird. Keep the runway clear, she snapped. We are landing heavy. Then, at last, the strip was fully in view, a pale rectangle on scarred ground. And even from this distance, she could see them. A cluster of people, a pickup truck too near the far end, and what looked like a camera crew just inside where she wanted safety. Her throat went tight. Runway not fully clear, she said. Keller saw it too. We can go around. With what fuel, she said, and into a ceiling that's dropping. He didn't answer. Orbis, clear the runway now, Elena called. All personnel outside safety zone. Vehicles off. You have 2 minutes. Captain, they want now, she said, steel in her voice. Or we leave. Silence on the radio. Below, she saw men waving arms, trying to push people back. The pickup began to turn, slowly, as if the driver didn't grasp the urgency. She held the glide, steeper than she liked, mostly because the alternative was to level off and lose the strip in cloud. At this descent angle, she had control, authority, a clean view. But it meant when she committed, she would be high on energy and would have to plant the aircraft exactly where she'd planned in the performance page. 3,000, Keller said. Speed 150. Looks good, she said, though what she meant was, looks survivable. The valley walls were close now, dark with trees. The sky ahead was lowering. This was the moment she had warned Keller about on the ground, the moment when it didn't look perfect. The strip filled the windscreen, rising up the valley toward them, but the picture was still wrong. Too many moving pieces, too much color where there should have been only concrete and paint. Runway not clear, Keller said, voice tight. Pickup still inside rollout. I see it, Elena said. Her thumb hovered near the push to talk. This was the point where, in training, you went around. This was not training. She keyed the local frequency. Helios ground, NATO Bravo 2 on final profile. Runway and safety area are not clear. All personnel and vehicles must vacate immediately. Static, shouting, then Orbis. Captain, we need you to land now. Media is here. Hospital is waiting. Listen to me, Elena cut in, sharp enough to slice through the noise. We are landing heavy. We will use the entire safe portion of that strip. Anyone inside the zone will be injured or killed. Clear it. Now. Keller watched her, then the runway, then back. He knew the fuel number. He didn't say it. Saying it would make it sound like desperation, and she needed authority. Below, a handful of people began to move back behind the tape. The pickup started to pull away, but slowly, as if the driver didn't understand that a 70-ton aircraft descending into a valley could not stop for him. Orbis, you have 5 minutes, she said. After that, if it is not clear, we leave. There will be no second pass. 5 minutes? We cannot. 5 minutes, she repeated, unbending. This aircraft cannot hold in your valley. Clear it or lose it. There was a pause, the kind where a local commander weighed pride against need. Then, understood. Clear the strip. Clear, clear. The shout was caught by the mic. She eased power in, letting the aircraft slow and drift a little farther out, buying the 5 minutes she'd just given away. Not a full orbit, ROE forbade circling over the village, but a stretched final, a shallow S-turn to bleed time without losing the runway out of sight. Keller leaned closer. Captain, ceiling's dropping. If we extend too far, I know, she said. Keep me a floor. Floor 800 AGL, he said. Below that you lose some visual on the near terrain. Copy. She glanced back through the cockpit door. Petrovich had strapped in near the forward bulkhead, headset on, eyes on the view outside. When she met Elena's eyes, she gave a small nod. The nod of someone who understood why you yelled at locals. It was to bring everyone home. On the ground, the picture improved. The pickup finally rolled off to the side. The camera crew, reluctant, shuffled back behind the tape as soldiers in mismatched winter gear waved rifles and arms to push them. A single child broke from the group and ran forward, Elena's stomach clenched, but an adult snatched him back. Runway looks clear, Keller said. Safety area mostly clear. Far end still has icier patch. That's fine, she said. We won't be floating that far. She pressed the radio again. Helios ground, Bravo 2, good work. Maintain clear. We are turning inbound now. Do not allow anyone back on the strip. Copy Bravo 2, Orbis said, breath still high. All clear. We wait. She rolled the aircraft back toward the center line, hand steady. Behind her, the mountains were darker now. The cloud edge had slid lower, like a ceiling being pulled down by an invisible hand. This approach would be the cleanest one she'd get. Keller said quietly, If we have to go around now, we divert. Then we don't go around, she said. He didn't argue. She rechecked configuration, gear down, flaps full, spoilers armed, reversers ready. The tactical landing checklist was complete. All that remained was flying the machine onto the first third of that concrete. Crew, cockpit, she called. Final. Expect firm touchdown and maximum braking. Petrovich's voice came back, calm. Cabin ready. Outside, the village was pushed back, resentful but out of danger. They would talk about the rude NATO pilot later. That was fine. Better angry than dead. Balkan Control, NATO Bravo 2 established on final Helios, she called. Committed. Bravo 2, winds variable 3 to 5 knots, ceiling continuing to lower. Report runway vacated. Wilco, she said. And then she let the valley fill the cockpit. Next would be hands and feet and judgment. The part she could not delegate. The runway lay dead ahead now, a pale stripe on winter earth. The crowd was behind the tape, the truck gone, the safety area as clean as she was going to get it. The cloud ceiling pressed lower over the valley, flattening the light. This was the window. "Speed 140, Keller called. "Glide path good. Winds." The wind arrow flickered on the display. 3 knots left cross, then 5, then 7. Not much on paper, but on a narrow strip with ice at the far end and no room to float. It was enough to shove a heavy aircraft half a meter off where she wanted it. "Crosswind building," she said. "We'll take a slip." Keller glanced at her. "You don't want to crab and kick?" "Not on a strip that narrow," she said. "I want to see the center line the whole way. We'll hold the wing down." He didn't argue. That, she noted, was new. He had stopped trying to nudge her back to the book and started helping her fly the day in front of them. She eased in aileron into wind, dropping the upwind wing just a little, and fed in opposite rudder to keep the nose aligned with the runway. The Atlas didn't love being flown that way, this low and this heavy, but it would do it. The smell of warm avionics and recycled air seemed sharper. "Orbis, Bravo 2 on final," she said, voice steady. "Maintain clear." "Runway is clear, Captain," came the reply, almost reverent. "We see you." Good. She rechecked configuration for the 3rd time. Gear down, flaps full, spoilers armed, anti-skid on, reversers armed for immediate deployment. This would be a firm arrival, not a graceful one. "Keller, call deviations," she said. "If I drift more than half centerline, tell me." "Wilco." His voice had lost its earlier edge. He was in it with her now. The wind flicked again. She increased the bank a hair, kept the nose straight. The runway numbers swelled in the glass. She could see the winter wear on the concrete. Darker patches, the scraped-off snow, the slicker sheen toward the far end she had already written off. 500, Keller called. "On profile." This was the altitude in training where you asked yourself, "Am I stable?" If not, you went around. But today, stability didn't mean pretty. It meant controlled. And she was controlled. 400, wind 5 from the left. She added a touch more rudder. The aircraft responded, nose obedient, wing dipped. She could almost feel Petrovich behind the bulkhead, braced, trusting that the woman in front would make all the hard math work. 300, speed 138, slightly right. "I have it." She nudged back. The center line came under the nose. Above the glare shield, the village roofs slid by, pushed away from her flight path as she honored ROE. No circle, no low pass, just this one, perfect arrival. In the corner of her eye, she could see figures holding up, phones. Let them film. Let them see what it cost. "Keller," she said quietly. "On touchdown, I want reverse up immediately." "Immediate reverse," he confirmed. "Max as soon as we're stable." "Petrovich," she called on intercom, not taking her eyes off the runway. "This will be firm." A beat then, amused and respectful. I expected nothing else. 200, Keller called. Slightly high, correcting. "I see it." She eased the nose down just a fraction, keeping the slip in, keeping the upwind wing honest. The aircraft was a big, breathing thing in her hands, but it was hers. This, she thought, was why she had accepted, so that at this moment, when it actually mattered, she would be the one making the choice, and not a cautious officer in a warm office. "Decision altitude," Keller said. "Runway in sight." "Continuing," she said. There was no go-around in her voice, only commitment. The runway numbers swelled in the windscreen. The side slip was holding, nose straight, upwind wing dipped just enough. Elena rode the throttles, trimming tiny bites of power to keep the descent nailed. Then the gust hit. It came off the valley wall from the left, a cold fist that slapped the tail and tried to weathercock the aircraft. The nose yawed, the wing wanted to level. For half a second the runway slid off the center of the glass. "Gust!" Keller barked. "I have it!" she snapped. And she did. Left aileron back in, right rudder, a touch more power to arrest the sink that gusts always stole. The Atlas shuddered but came back, nose recentering on the white stripe. The flare point rushed toward her, but the gust had cost her the perfect energy picture. If she flared gently now, she would float, 5, 10, 15 meters past where she wanted to plant it. On a normal field, that was nothing. Here, it was the difference between stopping on concrete and sliding onto ice, or worse, off the end. This is it, she thought. No second approach. She chose. She took a breath that was more like a brace and eased into the flare lower than was comfortable, bleeding just enough rate to avoid smashing the nose, but not enough to let it sail. The aircraft was still descending when the main gear met concrete. The impact was solid, a controlled punch. Metal thumped, struts compressed. A deep, rubbery roar came up through the floor. The cockpit shook. Any loadmaster would have known from that single jolt. Hard field, short field landing. "Touchdown," Keller called, already reaching. "Reverse," Elena commanded. She pulled the thrust levers into idle reverse instantly, then threw to full as the weight-on-wheels logic confirmed. Behind and below them, the big turboprops roared into a deeper note, air hammers slamming forward. The aircraft's nose wanted to wander with the asymmetric wind. She held it with rudder, her legs working. "Spoilers up," Keller said. "Anti-skid good." The runway rushed under them in gray blurs. She kept the center line in the sight picture like it was a living thing. Any drift now and a gear could bite into softer shoulder or hit that icy patch she'd seen. From the cabin came the muffled bang of cargo settling against chains. Then Petrovich's voice on the intercom, breathy but unpanicked. "Load secure!" "Good," Elena said through her teeth, eyes never leaving the strip. She came onto the brakes firmly, not stabbing, but heavier than peacetime. The A400M's anti-skid took it, modulating, tires scrabbling for grip on winter concrete. The deceleration pushed her forward in the harness. Ahead, the end of the safe portion approached too fast for comfort. The whiter, slicker part of the runway was there, waiting to steal meters. She kept the reversers howling. "Speed 60, 50, Keller called. He sounded impressed, despite himself. The aircraft slowed, the sink of momentum easing. They were still on the good concrete. The ravine and trees stayed theoretical, not real. Then the ECAM lit amber. "Brake temps rising," Keller said. "We're going to get a hot break." "Let it," Elena said. She began easing the reversers back toward idle, keeping just enough to hold the roll. "We're at taxi." They rolled to a stop well before the icy end, nose straight, wings level. Outside, through the forward windows, she saw the villagers, now no longer behind the tape, surging forward in awe, and the flash of cameras. They had no idea how slim the margin had been. Elena let out a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her hands trembled once, then steadied. "Nice work," Keller said quietly. There was no more second-guessing in it. In the back, Petrovich laughed once, a bright, shaken sound. "That was a landing." "It was a stop," Elena corrected, voice calm again. "We needed a stop." The brake temp warning stayed on, insistent. The aircraft settled into its stop, brakes sizzling in their housings, engines spooling down to a hungry idle. Outside, the winter air was full of people, more than Elena wanted, more than Orbius had promised. They surged toward the gray giant like it was a visiting ship, phones up, coats flapping. "Keep them back," Elena said immediately, keying the local frequency. "Helios ground, this is Bravo 2. Stand back from the aircraft. Engines are running. This is not a viewing." "Copy, Bravo 2, Orbis replied, breathless. "We are pushing them back." She looked at the ECAM. Brake temps in the red band. Not critical yet, but nothing she wanted to park on uneven village concrete for. The heat would take time to bleed, and time was what she didn't have. "Keller," she said, "we stay on one engine." He turned. "With this many people around? Captain, we should shut down and do a cold offload." "We shut down, and we may not start again if the strip cracks or aftershocks hit," she said. "We keep number 2 running for electrical and hydraulics. We offload fast." He didn't like it, but he understood the logic. In disaster zones, staying powered was survival. "I'll watch the temps," he said. She flipped to the intercom. "Petrovich, engines running offload. Keep everyone clear of the danger arcs." "Understood," Petrovich said, already unstrapping. "I will shout." Elena cracked the cockpit door open. Noise and cold rushed in. The hoarse bark of a turboprop at low power. Shouts in another language. The clatter of metal as the ramp started to move. She could see Lucia at the top of the cargo bay, arms wide, forcing a path. "Only medical teams!" Petrovich yelled in English, and then in her own language. "No civilians! Stay behind the line!" Local soldiers tried to help, but their idea of a line was loose. People kept edging forward, wanting to see inside the aircraft, wanting to touch it. To them, this was a triumph. To Elena, it was a hazard zone. She keyed Orbis again. "I need a hard cordon around my engines. Anyone goes in there, we stop and we leave." "Yes, Captain. We bring more men." An ambulance, old, white with a blue light that didn't work, backed up toward the ramp. Petrovich guided it with sharp hand signals, keeping it outside the prop arcs, then waved the medical pallets forward. The load chains rattled as they were released. Inside the cockpit, Keller watched the brake temps tick down by grudging degrees. "Still hot," he said. "We should not taxi on these." "We won't," Elena said. "We'll let them cool while we offload." She watched the field through the windscreen. The strip looked even narrower from this angle. If an aftershock broke the concrete, if the far end heaved, their takeoff could be gone. A knock on the cockpit door. Petrovich stuck her head in, cheeks flushed, eyes fierce. "They are taking it," she said, "but they want to load casualties back." "Negative," Elena said. "We're already at brake heat, short strip, and weather dropping. We came to deliver, not to evacuate." Petrovich nodded, not surprised. "I will tell them. They will not like it." "They can send a lighter platform for AVAC," Elena said. "We take off while we can." Petrovich vanished again, her voice rising below. "No evac on this aircraft. Medical pallets only." Outside, the ground rumbled, faint, like a truck passing. But there was no truck. Keller's head snapped up. "Did you feel that?" "Yeah," Elena said. She flicked to the local frequency. "Helios ground, Bravo 2. Was that an aftershock?" "Yes," Orbis said. He sounded suddenly urgent. "Small, but we had cracks in taxiway earlier. Captain, best you not stay long." That decided it. "Petrovich," Elena called. "You have 3 minutes. Whatever is not off by then stays." 3 minutes? Captain, the generator." 3, Elena said. "Aftershocks. I am not getting trapped here." A beat. Then, 3 minutes, Petrovich confirmed, and her voice turned harder as she drove the locals faster. Pallets slid, men strained, tires squealed on cold concrete. Elena looked at Keller. When we're done, we taxi slow. If brakes are still hot, we hold short and cool. Roger. I'll plan for the closest turnoff. On the ground, a local official in a reflective sash was arguing with Petrovich, gesturing toward the aircraft. Petrovich pointed toward the cockpit with a thumb. She's the boss. Then back at the pallet. The man relented. Within 2 minutes, most of the cargo was on Balkan soil, surrounded by medics in mismatched uniforms. The ambulance took the blood first. Someone raised a hand to Elena in thanks, not sure if she could see. She did. That was the moment she let herself think. We actually did it. We put it down, and they have what they need. Then she saw another group of civilians edging back toward the wing, phones up, too close to the running engine. She keyed the radio again, voice like ice. Helios ground. Keep your civilians away from my engine or I shut down and depart empty. I will not kill anyone today. They were pulled back, grumbling. The last pallet hit the ground and was dragged away toward the damaged buildings. Orbis called up. Cargo received. Thank you, Captain. The villagers cheered, a ragged winter sound. Elena didn't switch off the engine. Martin, how are the brakes? She asked. He eyed the readout. Still hot, trending down. We can taxi, but takeoff right now would be unwise. Copy, she said. We're not staying longer than we have to. A knock on the cockpit side window made her turn. A man in a thick coat and a sash, local authority, was looking up, smiling for a camera. Next to him, a woman with a mic pointed it toward the aircraft, as if Elena would open the window and give them the line they wanted. Of course, Keller muttered. They got media. Elena keyed the ramp intercom. Petrovich, tell them cockpit stays closed. If they want a statement, they get it through NATO channels. Yes, ma'am, Petrovich said. They want to film you. I know. A few seconds later, Petrovich's voice rose from below. No interviews. Aircraft still in hot condition. The media people didn't like that. The official gestured up again, mouthing words. He wanted her to step out, to stand in front of the big gray aircraft, to be the photogenic NATO heroine. She stayed strapped in. Her radio blinked with an incoming call. Secure channel. She switched over. Bravo 2, this is Ramstein Ops, Lieutenant Colonel Holm. His voice was bright, expectant. We have video from the ground. Excellent work. Thank you, sir, Elena said. We're still on scene. Brakes hot. Locals initially failed to clear runway. I had to delay landing by several minutes. There was a small pause. Yes, the local liaison says you were very strict about that. ROE demanded it, she said. I won't land heavy with people in the zone. Understood, Holmes said, but his tone had shifted. This was not the clean narrative. Listen, Brussels is already asking for the mission summary. We'd like to emphasize rapid response and seamless cooperation with local authorities. It wasn't seamless, Elena said. They had media inside where I needed clear runway. We need that in the report so the next crew doesn't get surprised. Another pause. We can adjust wording, Holmes said, careful. Remember, this was a success. It was, she agreed, because we enforced procedure. Below, she saw the local official finally give up on a cockpit appearance and turn toward the cameras instead, talking animatedly. From his gestures, she could tell he was making it sound like he had called, and NATO had immediately landed, no problem. She didn't resent him. That was his arena, but it wasn't hers. Sir, she said to Holm, I'm submitting an immediate sit-rep. Runway partially contaminated, initial civilian incursion, aftershock felt while on ground, Engines running offload due to runway fragility. That's the truth. Holmes sighed audibly. Elena, too much detail invites questions. Too little detail gets someone hurt when they try to repeat it, she said. You wanted something we could show Brussels. Then we show them exactly what it cost. He let that sit. Then clipped. Fine. Send your sit rep, but I need you airborne back to friendly base. We don't want you stuck if that strip fractures. Agreed, she said. We're cooling brakes now. She cut the line and pulled up the mission report format. Her fingers moved fast. Arrived 5:15 after tasking. LZ Helios 750 usable due contamination. Civilian presence inside safety area. LZ cleared on demand. Landing heavy, max braking, brake temps high. Offload engines running due aftershock risk. She added one last line. Crew performance, excellent. Nav LT Keller and Loadmaster SGT Petrovic maintained safety standards under local pressure. When she sent it, Keller glanced over. You put our names in. You earned it, she said. If Command wants a poster, they can use our real faces, not a fairy tale. Through the glass, she saw Petrovic look up, as if she somehow felt the recognition, and give the aircraft a little salute. The ECAM chimed again, brake temps easing into a safer band. Keller nodded. We can taxi now. Take off in a few minutes if the surface holds. Elena called the local frequency. Helios ground, Bravo 2. We are preparing to depart. Keep runway clear. Aftershocks reported. We will not delay. Understood, Captain, Orbis said, respectful now. Thank you for coming. She switched back to ops. Ramstein, Bravo 2. Departing Helios shortly. Brakes are still warm. Holm came back, stronger now. Copy, Bravo 2. RTB as soon as practicable. So even with hot brakes and a fragile strip, they wanted her airborne. She understood. Nobody wanted to explain how a NATO aircraft got stuck in a cracked village airfield after a media-friendly landing. She looked once more at the runway. It was still whole. It might not stay that way. They taxied back down the narrow strip like a truck on a mountain road. Slow, deliberate, eyes on every crack. The villagers had pulled back again, but cameras still watched. Elena kept the turns wide to spare the brakes, even though the runway didn't have much width to give. Brake temps back in the upper green, Keller reported. Not ideal, but acceptable for takeoff. Good, Elena said. Let's not sit here and tempt geology. She lined up on the concrete, nose toward the valley's open end. The sky ahead was grayer than when they'd arrived. Ceiling pushing lower, clouds sagging. If they'd delayed even 20 minutes more, the approach they'd flown might not have been possible. Helios ground, Bravo 2 rolling, she called. Keep runway clear. Clear, Captain, Orbis said. His voice had that tone now, the one people got when they'd seen something difficult done. Safe flight. She brought the throttles forward. The engines roared, the aircraft vibrated, and the Atlas began to move, at first reluctant, then gathering speed. She kept it arrow straight. Any swerve toward the softer edge, and they'd bog down in damaged concrete. Speed alive, Keller called. Brakes holding. Past the midpoint, they were committed. She eased it off the runway, feeling the gear leave the earth, the valley dropping away. The aircraft climbed into the dull winter sky. Then the ECAM pinged again. Brake temp advisory, Keller said. They're heating under retraction. Leave the gear down for a bit, Elena said. Let them cool in the wind. He nodded and left the lever in down. The landing gear stayed out, adding drag, but she could feel the cooler air lick over the wheels and housings. Short field in, hot brakes, immediate takeoff. The system was doing its best. She had to help it. She called Balkan Control. NATO Bravo 2 off Helios, climbing through 3,000. Break temp advisory, requesting direct to nearest suitable for tech check. Bravo 2, Roger, the controller said. Nearest suitable is Graz. Weather better than your departure. Cleared direct Graz. Keller shot her a look. That's closer than Ramstein. Exactly, Elena said. When we go to Graz. He exhaled, some tension breaking. Good. She switched to ops. Ramstein, Bravo 2. Airborne from Helios. We have break temp advisories and are diverting to Graz for inspection. Holm came on almost at once. Diverting? Captain, we would prefer you RTB. You're already in the air. Negative, sir, Elena said, tone professional but final. We departed from a damaged field with hot brakes. I'm not dragging this aircraft halfway across Europe with that history. Graz is closer, has maintenance and weather. A pause. The long-distance version of a frown. That will complicate the media piece. It will keep the aircraft intact, she said. We can do media with an intact aircraft. Another pause. Very well. Report once on the ground. Wilco. She ended the call and focused on the climb. Once the brake temps came down into a calmer zone, she retracted the gear, felt the drag fall away, and let the Atlas settle into cruise toward Graz. Not far, not glamorous, but safe. In the relative quiet, Keller looked over. Thank you, he said. For what? For not making us do the tidy RTB for command. He gave a small, crooked smile. This way we get to land on a real runway. You earned a real runway today, she said. So did the aircraft. From the back, Petrovich called up. Are we going home? We're going to Graz, Elena said. Then home. Good, Petrovich said. I would like not to die in a village airfield after delivering generators. Copy, Elena said, and a small, weary laugh slipped out of her. Below them, the mountains slid by, winter hard and indifferent. Ahead, a proper airport waited. Behind, a tiny strip in a shaken valley now had blood, power, and a story to tell. She knew, as she watched the gray horizon, that all of this, the conservative runway calculation, the engine running offload, the diversion, would be examined. Someone would want to know why she hadn't done it cleaner, why she'd sounded harsh on the radio, why she hadn't flown straight back to the base that had launched her. Because it was real, she thought. Because airlift is messy. Graz had smelled like de-icer and coffee and relief. Maintenance had rolled a stand to the Atlas, checked the brakes, nodded that nothing had cooked beyond limits. Then, before the day could even cool, Ramstein scheduled the call. So Elena sat in a conference room with a flat screen at one end, Austrian winter light on the other, and her flight jacket folded on the table. Keller sat to her right, uniform crisp despite the long day. Petrovich sat farther down, hands on her knees, posture straight in that way enlisted always had in front of officers who didn't fly. On the screen, Lieutenant Koldor Anders Holm appeared with two other faces, an O-piece safety major and a political liaison from HQ. Holm opened with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Captain Markova, first, congratulations on a successful humanitarian delivery. Thank you, sir, she said. We've already had positive feedback from the EU representative on the ground, the liaison added. They were very impressed with how quickly NATO responded. That's good to hear, Elena said. I'd like the report to reflect what made it possible. That's what we're here for, the safety major said. Let's walk through the mission. They did. Holm shared screen. SAT image, LZ Helios. Then flight data, descent profile. The line on the graph showed exactly what she'd flown. Steeper than standard, stable in the last segment, touchdown well inside the first third. You elected a 3.8 to 4 degree tactical profile, the major said. That's within aircraft capability, but not in the original tasking. Ceiling was lowering, Elena said. Standard profile would have taken us into cloud in the valley. I needed to remain visual. Why not go around? Fuel and weather window, she said, calm. We'd planned for a single approach, as per ROE. A go-around would likely have forced diversion. That would have denied the delivery. The major made a note. Your radio traffic with the local controller was forceful. They had personnel and media inside the safety area, Elena said. I gave them 5 minutes to clear or I would leave. That's also in the recording. Holmes' jaw tightened slightly. The local liaison said you threatened to leave. I stated a condition, Elena said, and they met it. That's why the aircraft is intact and why no civilians were hurt. From their perspective, the liaison said carefully, it sounded brusque. With respect, Elena said, from my perspective there was a truck near my rollout and a child near the tape. We briefed engines running offload because aftershocks were being reported. If one person had stepped into a prop arc or my rollout, the media clip you want would be very different. Silence. Then the safety major nodded once. The hot brakes? Predictable outcome of maximum braking on a partially contaminated short strip, Elena said. We let them cool. Takeoff was within limits. Subsequent advisory and climb-out triggered my decision to divert to Graz instead of continuing to Ramstein. Holmes seized on that. About that. The commander was expecting you home. She met his eyes on the screen. And I was expecting to keep the aircraft serviceable. I departed a damaged strip with hot brakes. The nearest suitable with maintenance was Graz. I chose safety. Keller spoke up, surprising them. Sir, I concur with the captain's decision. Brake temps were high, and we just worked the aircraft hard. Diverting was the prudent choice. The safety major looked at him. A navigator confirms? Yes, sir. They turned to Petrovich. Sergeant, you executed engines running offload with civilians nearby. Were you comfortable with that? No, sir, Lucia said honestly. But the captain kept them back on the radio, and we had aftershocks. If we had shut down and the runway broke, we would still be there. Elena felt a small warmth at that. Her crew was backing her, not because she asked, but because they believed it. Holm could see the direction this was going. He exhaled. No one is saying you failed, Captain. You did well. We just need to shape the story. The story, Elena said, careful and even, is that we landed a heavy aircraft on less than 800 meters of winter civilian concrete, with civilians too close, after a natural disaster, delivered what they needed, and got out. We did it by enforcing ROE, not by ignoring it. The liaison murmured, Brussels may not need every rough edge. Brussels may not, Elena said, but the next crew does. If you cut the part where the locals wanted a low pass and cameras on the runway, some captain 3 months from now will walk into the same thing and maybe they won't have my visibility or my brake temps. Put it in. Let them plan for it. The safety major looked at Holm. She's right. For flight safety, we need the full picture and the misrep. We can abridge for public release. Holm didn't like it, but with both her crew and the safety officer effectively on her side, he had to give ground. Fine, he said. Operational report can contain your details. Public comms will focus on the successful delivery. Understood, Elena said. The liaison smiled again. You realize, Captain, that you present very well on camera. I prefer to present well in the cockpit, she said. The call ended 15 minutes later. When the screen went dark, the room felt bigger. Keller let out a breath. I thought they were going to hammer you for diverting. They still might, Elena said. In writing. Petrovich grinned. Then they should also write that we landed where no one else wanted. They will, Elena said. And they will also write that we had civilians on the strip. I can live with both. The email came 2 days later, back at Ramstein, when the sky was a flat lid and the flight line smelled of thawing snow. Elena was in the squadron office finishing maintenance notes for Atlas Bravo 2 when her computer chimed. Subject line: Mission Helios, review outcome. She clicked it. It was what she had expected. Operation deemed successful. Humanitarian objectives achieved within requested window. Aircraft and crew returned without damage. And then, below the praise, the needles. Note: deviation from initial tasking profile. Steeper tactical descent. Note: engines running offload conducted with civilians present. Note: diversion to alternate without prior HQ approval. At the bottom, administrative remark to be placed in file RE, communications tone with local authority. She read it twice. It was not a career ender. It was a small weight tied to her ankle, one that would make her name pause on a future promotion board, one that would let someone say, excellent pilot, occasionally inflexible. She leaned back in the chair, fingers laced over her stomach, and let herself feel it. Not anger. Anger had burned off over the valley. This was smaller, duller, the knowledge that she had done the thing right and it still left a mark, a knock on the doorframe. Keller. You got it too? He asked. She tilted the screen so he could see. Mission success, plus the usual. He read, jaw working. They wrote up your tone. They did. They should have written up the pickup truck. They mentioned civilians, she said. That's enough. He looked at her. You could appeal? I could, she said. And raise the part they want to gloss over, and make this bigger than it needs to be. She shook her head. No, this can stay. It tells the truth. What truth? That I chose to land in a place that wasn't ready and made them get ready, she said. If someone wants to see that as inflexible, they can. The aircraft is still in one piece. He hesitated. It might slow your next board. It might, she agreed. But I'd rather have this in my file than a line about a civilian injured by prop wash. He nodded, grudging admiration there. Lucia will like that we were mentioned. She was, Elena said, scrolling. Sergeant Petrovich. Exemplary under pressure. Good, he said. She earned it. When he left, she forwarded the report to Petrovich with a short note. They saw you. A minute later, a reply came back. Then it was worth shouting at them. She allowed herself a small smile. Another message popped into her inbox. This one from an address she didn't recognize. Local domain from the Balkans. Subject: from Field Hospital Helios. She opened it. In simple, slightly broken English, it said, Dear Captain, we received the blood and generator in time. We operated on 3 patients from the collapsed building. All are alive. Please tell your crew. We know landing was not easy. We are grateful. Below were 3 names. Civilian names. Ages. One of them was 12. Elena felt the breath leave her in a different way than in the cockpit. She sat very still, hand on the mouse, eyes on those ages. 12. If she had refused, if she had gone around, if she had let the locals keep their camera crew on the runway, those names might not have been there. She forwarded that email to Keller and Petrovich, no commentary. The message spoke for itself. Then she turned back to the official outcome and clicked Acknowledge. No protest, no added statement. Let the note stay. Let it say she had been sharp with a local commander. Let it say she had diverted. Anyone who read far enough would also see crew performance excellent, mission successful, lessons captured. She closed the laptop and looked out the window. On the apron, Bravo 2 was already being prepped for a much more ordinary sortie. Cargo to Italy, no cameras, long runway. Another crew would take it. That was fine. The cost was real. A slower glide path in her career. A reputation for insisting on the real conditions rather than the flattering ones. But she finally had the counterweight. 3 lives on the other side of winter concrete. Ramstein in the late afternoon was all sodium lights and long shadows. Snowmelt made dark lines along the concrete, and the wind smelled cleaner than it had in days. Captain Elena Markova stood at the edge of the squadron's planning room, mug in hand, watching 2 younger pilots argue softly over an approach plate. Behind them, on the wall, a fresh sheet was pinned under plastic. Short field humanitarian landings, lessons learned, LZ Helios. She'd read it already. It was short, practical, not political. Treat local length claims as optimistic. Insist on clear safety area before landing. Consider engines running offload if aftershocks or runway fragility present. Plan for reduced usable distance in winter civilian strips. No names, but anyone in the unit would know whose mission it came from. That, more than the email from Brussels, made her feel like the day in the valley had mattered. She finished her coffee and walked out onto the apron. The light was going, sky turning the color of old steel. Bravo 2 sat farther down, quiet now, cowls closed, looking like any other transport. Another crew would fly her tomorrow. Maybe they'd go somewhere warm, somewhere paved and predictable. Footsteps behind her. Captain, she turned. Petrovich, hands in pockets, breath fogging. You saw the hospital email? Elena asked. Yes. Lucia smiled, small and real. I sent it to my brother. He thought I was exaggerating when I said we landed on a road. It was barely a road, Elena said. They stood side by side, watching the runway lights wink on in a long, straight line. You will keep flying, yes? Petrovich asked after a moment. They did not scare you away. Elena let the question hang. The inquiry, the administrative remark, the knowledge that some staff officer had typed "tone with local authority" into her file. All of it was still there. She could, if she wanted, request a staff posting for a tour. Teach tactics in a warm room. Let someone else be the sharp voice on the radio. But then she pictured the strip again. The sudden drop beyond the concrete. The child who had run toward the runway, the way the Atlas had shuddered when she forced it down. She pictured, too, the winter years ago, when she had gone around and been right and still lost someone. Helios had not erased that, but it had answered it. It had proved that given the choice again, she would carry the weight. Yes, she said. I'll keep flying. Petrovich nodded, satisfied. Good. I like it better when the person in front knows what winter concrete is. Elena smiled. And I like it better when the person in back chains for a hard stop without complaining. Then we are even, Lucia said, and stepped away, heading for the barracks. Alone again, Elena looked down the length of the runway. The lights were brighter now, cutting through the falling dark. A transport rolled, gathered speed, lifted, its belly flashing as it climbed. She felt no dread watching it, just recognition. Her phone buzzed, a message from Keller. SOP update looks good, thanks. She typed back, next one will be easier for you. He responded with a single word, copy. She slid the phone into her pocket. The administrative remark would trail her for a while. Some colonel later might ask, why didn't you just land nicely? She would tell him, because it wasn't nice on the ground. Because there were people in the safety area. Because the runway was shorter than they said. Because real missions don't care about neat endings. And because, she thought, watching the lights burn against the dusk, somebody had to be the one who still landed. She turned toward the squadron building. Tomorrow there would be another fragord, probably dull, probably easy. One day there would be another Helios, another valley with a strip that wasn't ready. When it came, whoever flew it would have better numbers and a clearer picture, because she had refused to smooth the truth. That was enough.